In 1973, the marriage bar, a law which made it illegal for women in Ireland to continue to work in the public and semi-state sectors once they were married, was finally abolished. Less than 20 years later, in November 1990, the Irish people elected their first female president, the trailblazer that was Mary Robinson. In her moving acceptance speech, Robinson commended the women of Ireland, Moran a Heron, who instead of rocking the cradle, had rocked the system by coming out in their thousands to vote for her and for a new Ireland. One such woman rocking the system was my grandmother, Bridget Murphy. I remember her as a stylish woman who liked things to be done a certain way. She wore big 70s style sunglasses and a chic scarves in her hair and a bold red lip. She grew beautiful roses in her garden, and she used to make me porridge for breakfast with lashings of cream and brown sugar on it. She always had mint humbugs in her handbag and hankies up her sleeve that she would inevitably draw out and lick to clean my face. She was loving. She read to me. She wrote me letters in her fluent Irish, and she bought me a new winter coat every year. But she wasn't soft. She was strong, fiercely intelligent, and she could be quite formidable at times. She was amazing. My granny died when I was 17, and I wish I could go back and ask her all the questions about her life that I had never thought to ask her back then. As is too often the case with older people in our society, I didn't fully appreciate the wisdom that she had to offer me. And I didn't understand that above and beyond being my granny, she was a woman entirely in her own right. Someone who, in her 80+ years of life, had experienced a range of challenges and triumphs, a life packed full of rich experience. She had stories that deserved to be heard, a perspective that should have been valued more greatly. And it's too late now, of course. Like so many women of her generation, when she died, she took her stories with her. But in recent years, I have been able to uncover a little bit more about her life and about her work. And in doing so, something completely unexpected has happened. By paying attention to and realizing the value of my grandmother's story, I found a key to unlock my story and to use my voice. And once that happened, I became able to help other people do the same. And I founded a business to help me do just that. A significant point on that journey for me was when I found the Fergus Finlay book, A President with a Purpose, a first-hand account of the Mary Robinson campaign for presidency. In one of the chapters of the book, Finlay describes how very early on in the campaign, an elderly woman climbed down the stairs to their Merrion Square office and declared herself an admirer, willing to do anything to help. She wanted to be part of the revolution that was afoot, but she fundamentally believed that Mary Robinson was absolutely the best person for the job. Can you guess who that woman was? Yeah, it was my grandmother, Bridget, who as a 70-something-year-old woman became one of the very first people to volunteer for the campaign for the new president. The team were really grateful for her support of the cause, and because she was an older woman, they thought it would only be fair to give her a desk job rather than asking her to pound the streets and canvass. So they put her to work helping by stuffing envelopes and getting mail shots ready, promotional material, that sort of thing. One day over coffee, the talk amongst the campaign team turned to Áras an Uachtaráin, the home of the Irish president, and what it might be like inside. I can tell you about it, my granny said. I used to work there. That day, the campaign team discovered that the little old lady that was quietly licking stamps had in fact been the secretary to the first president of Ireland, Douglas Hyde, over 50 years previously. Now, I don't exactly know how my granny came to be in that role. It must have had something to do with the fact that her father, a man called Padraig O'Keefe, was an Irish politician and a revolutionary. He was interned for his role in the 1916 Rising. And he was elected Sinn Féin MP at both the 1918 and 1921 elections. This was the backdrop that my granny was raised against. Can you imagine the stories she must have had? I would give anything to know more about what that was like for her, how it shaped her, what she saw, the conversations she overheard, the people that called round to her house. But other than anecdotes and fragments of memories within the family, there's just no record anywhere of what she had to say about her childhood and early years, growing up alongside the formation of the Irish state, surrounded by some of the greatest icons of our country. My mum said she just didn't talk about it. She was proud and she was private. But I also believe she had been taught by the system that there was no room for her stories, that her voice and her perspective didn't matter. So she stayed silent. What we do know, however, is that her career working for the president was fairly short-lived. Once she got married, she had no choice but to leave her job because of the marriage bar. This institutionalised gender discrimination was in place for a few reasons. If women were forced to leave their civil service, public sector jobs, well then it meant they would never be able to climb up the ranks of their pay scale, which meant that it would save the government money. And secondly, there was an idea that there should be kind of one man for one job, and that if there were great jobs out there, they should be kept for the men in society. And thirdly, and finally, if women had families at home, then it meant that their work could possibly neglect their duties. And so, as was the law, my granny said goodbye to her career and became a mother and a housewife. Valuable roles, of course, but the point is she didn't have a choice or a voice. But today I do, and that's why I'm here. First and foremost, to pay homage to my grandmother, Bridget Murphy, to honour her and all the women like her who paved the way for women like me to enjoy the freedom I experience today. And to invite you to find your stories, to discover what made you, consider who's in the wings of history cheering you on, and to encourage you to make a space for other people to tell their stories, to listen and to learn, so that we as a society might live and work together better in the future. In the 30 or so years that have followed since Mary Robinson became our president, much has changed in Ireland. We have made great progress. And yet, there is still so much to be done. The system continues to be broken for too many, and we, the Moran Heron, need to continue to rock it. Almost 40 years after the marriage ban was abolished, in 2021, the Gender Pay Gap Information Act was introduced, making it the law that employers publish the salary scale information of their employees and outline any differences in the pay of men and women under their employment. Beyond the current 14.4% pay gap, of course, between genders, there are many other issues that need to be addressed. As we navigate this disruptive new world and increasingly digital way of doing things, we have to keep issues of diversity, equity and inclusion at the very forefront of everything we do. If we have the freedom of speech and the privilege of a platform of any size, then we need to use our voices to stand up and speak out for those people who are silenced. We need to actively make space to listen to all stories, to amplify a diversity of perspectives, and to be accountable to change. There's so much that we need to learn and unlearn so that we can do better. And this work can happen right now, in our homes, in our communities, in our workplaces, and in our hearts. One simple way to start is by telling better stories. Our words have the power to burn and destroy, or to build beautiful bridges of trust, empathy, collaboration, and belonging. We begin by finding our personal narratives, our strengths and our weaknesses, mapping, sifting, and sorting through what made us. And then if we can start sharing our stories, showing our hopes, our fears, our wins, as well as our vulnerabilities, then it makes it safe for other people around us to do the same thing. No matter what we do, we can each become a leader on this mission. And as we move and grow, we can consciously leave ladders in place for other folk to grow too. In her inauguration speech in December of 1990, President Mary Robinson said this: "Symbols determine the kinds of stories we tell and the kind of history we make and remake. I want Áras an Uachtaráin to be a place where people can tell diverse stories in the knowledge that there is someone there to listen." 30 years on, these words still ring true. We have a job to do, to not only rock the system, but to make entirely new ones, to tell better stories so that we can make a better, fairer world, one that has inclusion, equity, and belonging at its core. The great Maya Angelou once said, "I come as one, but I stand as 10,000. The day my grandmother left her work, she was given a traditional gold watch to thank her for her service. This is the very same watch. I wear it today to remind me of her, to give me courage when I feel too small, overwhelmed, or insecure. It is a powerful symbol for me of resilience, hope, but most importantly, a symbol of responsibility. The women who came before us are watching us, cheering us on, yes, but also holding us accountable to make use of the freedom that they fought so hard for. And in the future, the stories of our grandchildren will depend on us. So let's get to work. Thank you.